Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. And welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and the editor of ProduceBuzz.com. I'm joined once again by Teresa Nolan, the founder and the president of Produce Buzz, along with Rick Stepp and Cynthia Benedetto, both contributing editors to Produce Buzz. Now today, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, we are going to learn about a unique citrus fruit that has been taking the fruit world by storm. It is fast becoming a heavyweight in the produce aisle. It is a fruit that no doubt you are seeing front and center in the produce departments right now, and you will see for the next few months. And maybe you have wondered about them, what they taste like, what's their origin, where are they grown. They are being highlighted in most produce sections now, but they are not a pretty sight. They are odd-shaped and covered in bumps. And to top it off, they have one huge bump on the top of the fruit that makes it look like it's deformed. It's kind of like the elephant man of the fruit world. But we here at Produce Buzz think they are beautiful. Rather than an elephant man, we think they're more like that pug-nose or bulldog that so many dog lovers adore and love. It's that strange shape and gnarly look that draws us to them because just like that bulldog, there is something very special going on underneath their lovable skin. We are talking about Sumo citrus. Have you heard of them? No doubt you've seen them, but maybe you didn't know what they are called or why they are called that. And today we have a guest who is going to explain that to us and tell us everything we wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask about these weird and wonderful treats. Sonia Gull joins us today. She is Vice President of Marketing at AC Foods, which owns the Sumo Citrus brand, as well as some other leading brands in the fresh produce industry. Sonia is a dynamic marketing leader who has been instrumental in making Sumo Citrus a household name. She is a marketing pro with over 15 years, mostly in the food industry, where she brought cutting-edge creativity and strategic thinking to some well-known companies. She has worked for Novartis Pharmaceuticals, ACH Food Companies, which owns the Mazola Oil and Fleischmann's Yeast brands, among other famous labels. And she has worked for Foster Farms and my favorite, Ghirardelli Chocolate Company. In 2019, Sonia joined AC Foods and breathed new life into the Sumo Citrus brand by spearheading a complete redesign in 2019. Under her vision, what was once a brand with minimal campaign spending has now transformed into a name that resonates with consumers. Her strategies led to huge leaps in consumer awareness for Sumos. She was able to tap into the obsessed fans of Sumo Citrus and feature them in ads and social media posts to grow their cult-like following. Many of those posts on social media went viral, spreading the gospel of the delicious and fun Sumo Citrus. Sonia, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's a delight to have you. We've been wanting to feature Sumo Citrus for as long as we had the podcast going. So it's great to have an expert like you and someone who knows it well. But first, let's learn a little bit more about Sonia. We just said a few things about you. You wound up in the produce business, but that's not where you started. What's your background? Where did you grow up?
My passion has always been in the food sector for a really long time from the beginning of my career. So the brands and the companies you mentioned, I've had the privilege of working at those companies, getting my grounding and experience in marketing. But it's always been focused on brand growth. And so in 2019, when I joined AC Foods, it was really to drive growth of the Sumo Citrus brand. And that has been my focus for now, almost the last 5 years.
Fantastic. And, produce brands it's a difficult thing in produce to create and maintain a brand and build a
Yes.
brand awareness, because it's not widgets, right? You're not
No,
just turning
Mother
this thing.
Nature is the boss. Yes.
Right. And I think we'll get into a little bit of that today, about why Sumo is so special in that realm, and the challenges that the growers face growing them. But first of all, I want to say I hope you didn't mind me poking a little fun at the looks of Sumo Citrus.
Oh, not at all. That's a huge part of why consumers are curious, because it's such an odd looking piece of fruit, and that drives trial. So
Right.
so no problem at all.
Good, good, good. I figured that might be the case. So tell us more about AC Foods. What's its history? What are some of the other things you grow?
Yeah, so AC Foods has come together due to different acquisitions over the past 10 years or so, with expertise in farming, packing, shipping, and marketing brands that hopefully consumers love. We focus on three permanent crops: citrus, blueberries, and hazelnuts.
Oh,
And really,
hazelnuts.
yes, we have hazelnuts.
Wow.
And really, our mission is to expand access to healthy foods through better farming. We have a focus on regenerative agriculture,
Hmm.
supporting local communities. And with those three crops, we manage over 20,000 acres
Wow.
across multiple states and a few countries. And half of that acreage is dedicated to citrus.
What are the states you're in then? California,
So
obviously. We know that.
we do in California. We grow citrus as well as blueberries in California.
Okay.
And then we grow blueberries through Oregon as well.
Okay.
And we grow Sumo citrus specifically, as well as some other citrus in Australia.
Oh, so you're growing sumos in Australia.
We
Okay.
are.
Oh, fantastic. I wasn't aware of that, but
What
that's
about the
good to know.
hazelnuts?
Hazelnuts are primarily grown in Oregon, and a majority of the hazelnuts that we grow are exported out of the country. There's a much larger demand for hazelnuts in Europe. So a lot of that, we basically grow them and then we ship them for export.
Okay. And then they go into that Nutella that I buy.
Nutella,
Nutella. That's it.
my guess is that's where it's going.
Right.
Italy is taking all of the hazelnuts.
Right. They have the new.
Hazelnuts in general were a struggle to find this year here. How was your crop?
Same thing. We've had challenges on our hazelnut crops for the last few years. And so even as we look at the export business for hazelnuts, I think there's challenges not only on growing them, but also commanding sort of a price that allows us to, continue to function and grow the hazelnuts. So it's been challenging, I would say, for the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, right. Tell us a bit more about the regenerative agriculture. What is it, and why is that important?
So for us, it's really focused on restoring critical ecosystems, conserving resources, and nurturing our communities. So the 4 sort of key areas that we focus on is around conservation. We are thinking about the use of our water, fuel, energy. We're focused on supporting natural habitats and beneficial insects for our crops. We think about carbon sequestration through, living soils. And then last, and that's certainly not least, is really around nourishing employees and the communities that we operate in.
Oh,
So we're really
fantastic.
focused on the employees and the communities there.
Very holistic approach. It's not just producing the crop.
It's not just this, we think about where we're producing those crops and the
Right.
communities we impact.
Right. Well, let's get to Sumo Citrus. Tell us about its origin and has it been around for thousands of years, like a lot of other citrus, or is it a new thing?
It's been around for a while. We actually, the variety was originally cultivated in Japan in the 1970s by a grower who was set out to develop the ultimate citrus experience. So this variety was dubbed Decapon. So if you hear the word Decapon, that was dubbed in Japan, and it's been prized in Japan and East Asia since then. Seedlings for this variety were first imported into the US in 1998. But
Okay.
because it's one of the most challenging varieties to grow, it wasn't until 2011 that it became available to the public. So
Wow.
after
So,
years of growers trying to figure out how do we actually grow this variety in California soil, will California water, um, we now have dedicated farmers who've been working on that for years. So this season is our 14th season in market with Sumo citrus.
but it took you almost that long to get it to where it was
Exactly.
producing, and probably not large crops then either. It's been,
That's
yeah,
correct. Yeah.
right. And it's a fairly new variety. It is a hybrid, though. It is. So the
It
Japanese
is.
farmer crossed. Do you know what he crossed? What did they cross?
The hybrid mandarin was derived, the parents are a satsuma, an orange, and a
Oh,
mandarin. So
okay.
those three sort of created the decapon, and that's what we imported from Japan in the late 90s.
Right. So I didn't
That
realize
was
it was.
what? What was the cross?
It was satsumas, an orange, and a mandarin.
Yeah, very good. I didn't realize it was such a young variety. So
Yes.
that's great, but it's really exploding. As I said in the intro, it's gaining a lot of popularity, and I think more and more people know about it, and they know what it's like, and they know how fun it is. Tell us about what it's like. What are its characteristics? What makes it such a unique fruit?
So I would say, I think first and foremost would be the flavor of Sumo citrus, and then the size.
All right.
So Mother Nature, delivers a variety of sizes for Sumo citrus. Sometimes that can be dependent on the age of the tree. But the biggest thing I think is that flavor consistency is driven by like the hard work of our growers and the technology we've invested into our growing practices and in our packing house. So the flavor is this burst of citrus. It's like the perfect balance of sweetness, which is a high Brix, and the right level of acidity to complement that. It's super easy to peel. It's seedless. And that time that we were talking about, from the time that it was imported to when we could figure out how we actually grow it here, the growers are really the heroes and the experts on the fruit. So that's why we say not every decapon is a Sumo citrus, because only those
Hmm.
meeting our specific size, our taste standards, and coming from SunTreat, that's the brand. Sumo citrus is what consumers will see in store.
Yeah.
What's the
Um,
bricks in which it's harvested?
Usually we're looking at a minimum Brix around 16 is
Wow.
what we see.
That is high.
So, and the technology we invested into the plant allows us to actually read the Brix for every single piece of fruit. So that's where we're thinking about the Brix to acid ratio delivering sort of that burst of citrus flavor, which is
Yeah.
very unique to Sumos.
Well, a lot of our listeners, we've talked about bricks on the show before, but since most of our listeners are not in the industry, I want to just remind them what bricks is. It's basically the percentage of sugars in the fruit. And I think if it's a 16, that means it's 16%
I believe
sugars.
so. I
Yeah.
believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. There may be a little bit of technical difference than just that, but it's
Then just
16%
that.
sugar. But that's pretty high. And I'm fascinated by the fact you say that you can determine the Brix level for every single piece of fruit without
Yeah,
cutting it open.
so we actually have like an X-ray technology that was invested
Oh,
into the packing house. So the fruits go through the X-ray machine on before they hit the packing line.
wow.
And, so the specs that our team has determined to deliver that optimal Brix to acid ratio will make it to the fresh market, and the fruit that doesn't make it to the fresh market usually ends up going to a partner on the juicing side, so we're not
Yeah.
wasting any fruit. But yeah, that's why we're pretty high standards in terms of what will be in a box that's listed as Sumo citrus.
Yeah.
Is it like most fruits in terms of it begins at a 16, so as the season continues, it'll be higher?
It goes even higher. Yeah. So I think some of the lower ranges in the beginning of the season, I think could be around 15, but I've seen Brix, very high Brix, 18, 19.
Wow.
Yummy,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So I don't know. We track it every single year in terms of sort of the range that we see beginning of the season to the end of the season. But I don't have that information handy in terms of what that, range could look like month to month. But you're right. There's definitely a range.
So, and when you guys the growing,
Mhm.
is it like for the citrus that it takes 7 to 12 years that the tree matures?
It takes about 4 to 5 years for a tree to bear fruit. Um, and in terms of maturity, I probably don't know that off the top of my head. I know, some of the trees we have now, we've had for, over 14 to 20 years since it's our 14th season in market. I don't know what the average maturity is, if whether that's, but I can look into that with
So
our
no,
growers.
no, I just wondered in terms of you've got a tree, it's starting to produce fruit. However, a real crop could be several years. So it's the
Oh,
same
it'll be
thing.
at least, yeah, it's the same thing. It'll be at least 5 years to where, even year one of the planting, you'll see fruit. And even though it breaks our hearts, you got to pick that fruit off for the first several years to make sure that the nutrients are going where they need to. And then usually, I think 4 to 5 years in, we start bearing fruit that can actually, deliver to the fresh market.
And in terms of identifiers, when you were saying the skin, I can't believe that nobody here, you notwithstanding, didn't talk about the knob, like the samurai knob that's on top.
Yeah, I let Edwin spoke to that in the beginning of in the intro. So yes, that top knot, what we call the top knot, is very, very distinct. It can vary, just like the size of the fruit varies. The prominence of the knob sometimes varies by the size of the fruit. So that is very distinct for the fruit itself in terms of identifying it in store.
So the beginning, that was when I was late for class, right?
No, that was in the intro. I just referenced it, but I did not make the allusion to the top knot. And we're gonna.
Yes.
So let's just get into that. Why are they called sumos?
Oh, that's
Maybe
a great question. Yeah, so this is before my time, but it's so Sumo Citrus is the trademark brand name, and it was actually the result of consumer research that was done back in
Oh,
2009.
okay.
So as we just talked about, the appearance of the fruit is very distinct, both the size as well as that knob, the knot on the top. Uh, and because it has Japanese roots and it's incredibly sweet, different names were actually tested with consumers. And that's what led to the selection of Sumo Citrus, is that it tied in the best for consumers in terms of how it visually looked.
Right.
And the
So
Sumo
I
sort
guess
of
the
big
3
size.
syllables of samurai would have been like, wouldn't have
A
worked.
little bit more difficult but I think it's like the size, right? Like the sumo related back to sort of the size of the fruit, whereas the biggest mandarin.
Big. And it's got the top knot. The sumo wrestlers wear that knot in
Exactly.
the hair up at the top. So it's brilliant. I think I read somewhere that brand names for citrus, the ones that only have 2 syllables, do the best. I
Oh.
read that somewhere,
Well,
like
this is why
halos
consumers
and
call it
cuties.
sumo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sumo. I don't know. Hard to come up with more than that. But anyway, so that's
Well,
where the name.
the literal meaning of sumo is to compete.
Mm,
Oh, really?
So that also ties in, if you think about it, just to compete with in the citrus world.
right.
That's
True.
interesting. I didn't know that. Cynthia, you should have known that. You're Japanese.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking, like, well, samurai, they had like, the some had the knot, but it doesn't roll off the tongue so well, and
Yeah, that's a good point.
maybe that means warrior. I don't. Yeah.
Right. Well, back to more of the profile of the sumo citrus. What are the nutritional benefits? I guess it's a lot like other citrus fruits, but does it dominate in some way?
It does. It dominates. I think a lot of it has to do with sort of the size of the fruit as well, but it dominates in the vitamin C element from a nutritional profile.
Okay.
So it delivers 160, the average size fruit delivers 163% of your daily recommended vitamin C intake.
Okay.
So that's something we definitely try to educate consumers and our retailers on, to where, it's winter, it's cold, we want vitamin C, so sumo a day.
Right. Very
if
good.
not more.
So it's more than a navel or some of the other citrus fruits, or how does it compare?
I believe so. And I have to look up what those averages are,
Yeah.
because those sizes sometimes are a little bit more consistent.
Right.
But definitely higher than I think the averages that I've seen historically.
All right. Now, I said in the intro that they're in the stores now, dominating the produce section. It seems like every store I've been in, they're right front and center. But what is the season for the Sumos? How long? When can they start getting them, and how long do they last?
Yeah, so our US crop is in season generally January through April, providing Mother Nature, is being kind to us
Right.
that season. So January through April is the US crop season. And then I briefly mentioned in the last, 7 to 8 years, we have been growing Sumo citrus in Australia.
Okay.
That crop is a much smaller crop than what we have in the US, but that usually hits stores in September and October.
You
And
import those here, or they stay in Australia?
we actually import most of
Okay.
them to the
Okay.
US.
All
Yes.
right.
So September and October, maybe a little bit into November, but there's a little fall surprise and delight for consumers. And we're hoping that can sort of grow in the future.
That
Does
was
most of that
something. That was
import?
another. There's another thing that Teresa represented was some Australian citrus growers, didn't you, Teresa? And Rick worked with her at that
Oh,
point too. So
Yeah. When we were with D&E, we introduced the first Australian citrus to the United States. We were on the
oh,
ground
wow.
building that program. Yeah. And it turned out to be very successful.
That's great.
Yeah.
yeah, with those
But
navels.
when you bring those Sumos into the US, do they mostly stay on the West Coast, or do you distribute them nationally?
That's a great question. Actually, historically, during COVID-19 sort of logistics nightmare challenges, we had pretty limited crop that would stay, just on the West Coast. This past season in 2023, we brought into the East Coast, into the Savannah port as well. So we were able to get East Coast distribution with with a few retailers, but because the overall crop size right now is very small, our distribution in that time frame is pretty small versus the US time frame. But yeah, this past season was the first time we were able to get to the East Coast as well.
Good.
Yeah,
And is the pack out similar to apples, oranges, whatever, as many as you can stuff in the box?
Well, I think there's elements of, the spec that created in terms of size and that bricks to acid ratio. Um, it's hand packed into totes in our facility. And so as long as it meets that spec, it will be hand packed. It's put into sort of a tray. We need to make sure the fruit doesn't actually bump or grind against each other because the skin is so sensitive, it'll bruise really easily. So because the packing is very different than like a navel or an apple, it's not necessarily about like stuffing as many as we can. It's about making sure that we meet the spec and then that size can actually hold into sort of the configuration and logistically deliver to a retailer or a customer without impact to the actual fruit.
and that brings up a point that I found in doing a little bit of research is that it is a more fragile fruit in the citrus realm. And that, that I know that some of our consumers and listeners will say, oh, it looks like a great fruit. I think it's great. It's a little higher price, but there's some good reasons for why it's higher priced. First of all, it's delicious, and something that good should be higher priced. But secondly, growing them is difficult. You said a little bit about that earlier. Tell us about the challenges in growing Sumo.
Yeah, so I think we say Sumo citrus the world's most pampered fruit.
Oh,
So instead of using high maintenance, I'm like, it is very pampered. So nearly all North American Sumo citrus is grown in a 60-mile radius of California's Central Valley. So that would be the San
okay,
Joaquin Valley.
right.
And the trees are hand pruned so that each piece of fruit gets more sunlight multiple times a year. The fruit is ripened on the tree. Each fruit is hand picked and then harvested in small totes instead of big bins, because again, if they rub against each other, there's going to be a problem in terms of the skin. even at our packing house, it's actually floated onto our lines in water to
Oh,
prevent
okay.
bruising. Is then hand packed into each box or in crate. Even from the field to the packing house is transported in air ride trailers, so there's less bumps across the road as it comes to our facility in Dinuba. So all of those elements, there's a higher, cost to our growers to actually grow the fruit, and every single step that we have to take from field to the packing house to the market, that's what really drives the cost of these to be
No,
more
no,
than what we
no, no,
see.
no. It's not that they cost more. It's because they're more valuable.
They are very valued, yes.
Well, it's a lot of the best things in life. It takes a lot of care and meticulous work to bring it to us, and with the flavor and everything, they're definitely worth the cost. So,
And back to the bricks level, when you compare it with something like a mandarin, the bricks on a mandarin run between 11 and 14, and this is a 16. So that a lot of people are familiar with the mandarins, so that will give them an idea about how sweet it really is.
yeah, I'm glad that's a good comparison, because
Yeah, there's no like when you're
mandarins and
eating that.
the clementines, mandarins, same thing. Is that what you're referring to, Teresa? Mandarin, clementines, yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what should our listeners know about this season for Sumo? Was it a good season? Is there a lot of volume? How was the growing conditions this year?
So things have, knock on wood, it's a great start to our season. We are projecting in 2024 to deliver the largest crop that we've ever had.
Oh, great.
And so right now, we started harvesting a little bit earlier in December. So fruit started actually hitting the market right around Christmas, which was a first for the brand. So we are hopeful that the next few months, that trend sort of continues and we can continue to pack the fruit. And there's no crazy weather events as we've had in California here the last 2 years,
Right.
and that we can continue to be in market, through April.
Yeah.
And when
Right.
you can edit this out, but at store level, I haven't gone crazy for it because the bricks is not to the point where I prefer
You
it.
personally prefer it, yeah.
But that you can't always go by me because like your last chocolate employer, I'm liking stuff like that. Teresa, on the other hand, might go, no, oh my gosh, it was so good. But I like it sweet. So I'm
You
just
like it
kind of
super
holding
sweet,
off.
yeah.
Yes.
So I
So
think February would be a
it's-
good month, is when
okay,
it
so I
starts
need to wait
even.
off to okay.
If
Okay.
you prefer, if your personal preference is for like a higher brick,
Yeah. And so, okay, now, Edwin, now we can get back into the podcast.
No,
and I was just going to
I'm
comment on that. No, we have some consumers, Cynthia, who are just the same sort of, preference. And sometimes it's also that, they're also like, well, like, I'm remembering like April of last year and it was so sweet, which would be the highest bricks that it would be at. So sometimes it's also consumers are comparing to the end of a season to a beginning of a season. And I think what we ensure that we do is we've tested fruit off of harvest, early harvest, mid harvest, late harvest, to ensure we're delivering a consistent experience for the brand. We've tested the large size versus the small size to make sure that the consumer is having a consistent experience. We've tested our US crop versus our Australian crop. So that's where I go back to, like, it's a very specific piece of fruit that's going to make it into the box. And you're absolutely right. There's going to be a personal preference for folks on, I'm looking for something sweeter, or I'm going to wait a little bit, but there's sort of that range that we have is sort of what we're trying to meet for every single piece of fruit.
Very good. Yeah. So Cynthia's our unabashed sugarholic. We're supposed to be promoting healthy foods, and she's munching away on.
It's natural.
It's the
fruit.
healthy and delicious.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not refined.
She only eats cotton candy grapes.
Oh.
And
Well,
even they have left me dry recently.
and isn't chocolate is chocolate a vegetable? I don't know.
Oh, how is the cocoa bean? Yeah, how is that classified by the FDA? I don't know.
Well, that dark chocolate is supposed to be very good for you.
No,
Very
no,
healthy
no,
for you.
no. The way that like you open it up and it's got all it's kind of gross, but because you know how I am about seeds, but
And sumos don't get any sweeter after they're picked, right? Like some other fruits, they stay pretty much the same.
You know, that's a great question for the growing team. I think there is like a 4 to 5 day curing process that we have for the fruit at our facility. So it's always this balance of the Brix to acid ratio. So that's
Right.
where we're trying to make sure that it's within sort of the standards that we've set. So
Yeah.
potentially could change, but I would have to double check on that.
Well, I guess it's going to dehydrate a bit, and if it dehydrates a bit, it may not increase in sugar, but it will probably taste a little sweeter. But
Tastes
you
a
don't
little
want
bit
them to,
different with the
you don't
acid
want them,
dropping.
yeah, you don't want them to be too dry.
when it starts rotting, like the
Right.
acid
No.
goes away, it's like good. Again, Edwin will edit this out.
What about other citrus? Rick and Teresa, you would know this better than me. Do they sweeten up? Does a navel orange sweeten up when it sits around for a little while?
Not really. I'm wondering if the reason they have that curing period is for the skin color. Does that help the skin cure out and get better color, maybe?
Could be. And I think a part of it, my understanding, and I can double check this, is the curing process, there is a little bit of like the acid sort of drops, and that breaks to acid ratio, then is in
That
that
changes.
optimal sort of zone.
Mhm.
So
Right.
you're right, it may not be the Brix is changing, but that ratio changes with the acid dropping. So
I
I
see.
believe that that's what drives that sort of time frame.
Sure.
And again, edit this out because I'm like,
Yeah, half the show is going to be gone
I
now.
know,
so-
right? Don't say this. Yeah, this is off the record. But like grapefruit, is just like take the enamel off your teeth, kind of like acid lack of Brix ratio. So that's why the something like the Sumo or cotton candy or something like that is so inviting.
You need to try the Oro Blanco. I noticed that AC Foods grows Oro Blancos. Those are white, but they are incredibly sweet. My neighbor in Pasadena
What,
across the street.
grapefruit?
Grapefruit. Well, they're not
Grapefruit.
going to be sweet enough for you, Cynthia.
Yeah,
but
okay, yeah.
For a
Me neither,
grapefruit, they're
Cynthia.
amazing. We're not
Yeah.
going to talk. We won't get into the other things. We're going to focus on Sumo, but those Oro Blanc. My neighbor across the street in Pasadena had a tree, and he had to give away most of them, and they're unbelievably sweet. So I hope you can develop that brand and get it going.
Unless my mom brought home some really good orchid and then she would preface it, I'm doing the refined sugar on top.
Yeah,
Oh.
Cynthia's
The 3
mother.
times I ate it.
Cynthia's mother was a pioneer in the produce industry, one of the first women executives in the produce business. She worked for Ocean Spray Citrus, selling their grapefruit for many years.
Okay.
But
And
she
was
started out with Orchid Island grapefruit, which doesn't exist anymore.
it was really fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
also with
oh.
grapefruit, that again, if you're waiting later in the season, it gets sweeter. And
That's
so
true.
you don't want to eat a grapefruit before February from Florida. So
Right.
I've had some
When
really
it comes
good
to
ones
that,
from
that
Texas.
sweeter is relative.
Yes, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
The Sumo that I see in the stores, and hats off to you, Sonia, bringing your branding expertise, and of course the way the growers grow them. They're about as close to a widget in the produce aisle as you can get, because they seem to be so consistent. But what would you say to someone when they're selecting them? Do they have to? Can they close their eyes and just pick them up, or is there some other tricks?
Well, I think there's a lot of, there's a huge passion for Sumo citrus and a lot of consumers who are aware of Sumo citrus. And we're still working on, getting Sumo citrus in the mouths of every single consumer in the US. So
Yeah.
for those who are unfamiliar, I would say, when you touch the fruit, it's going to be a little squishy. Like the skin is a little bit looser.
That's
part
not
of the
abnormal. That's
not
normal.
abnormal because people are used to like a tough skin of a navel. So
Right.
it's squishy. You may see a variety of shapes and sizes. Again, that is how this variety works. You may see a really big top knot. You may see a small top knot. The skin can be also, there's some skin that will look really bumpy. Some skin will look a little bit smoother. All of that, I think we try to educate consumers saying, all of that is normal and it's very different from every other piece of citrus. And then of course, what Cynthia and you mentioned, like the top knot, it's very distinct and that is normal. So as you look for it, if you're a first time user, just know that all of those things are what makes this variety so special. And we also say for Sumo citrus, look for the purple sticker. We have a lot of our branding, as you see, is with the color purple. That was very intentional, as that's paying homage to sort of the Japanese heritage, where the purple color stands for royalty in Japanese heritage and culture. So we say look for the purple sticker, look for the Sumo, displays in store. And hopefully they'll have a great experience.
And I think the top knot is an easy pop off to begin the peeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kids probably really love that.
And it's easy to peel. A lot of
it
it's the squishy skin too, right? It's a much looser rind. And so when you use that top knot to pop it open, then it's a much easier peel. It's a very easy peel.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't get all over your hands and all over your
mess.
Clothes. You could eat it in a 3-piece suit, drive it down in your BMW, It's not messy, which is good. Okay, so what's the best way to, my house, they don't last long, so this is probably a moot question because you eat them so fast. But if I wanted to buy a big box of them in one of the club stores, you probably have a club store pack, right?
We do. We have fruit at Sam's Club. Yes.
Okay, so if you bought one of those, what's the best way to make sure they last for the longest?
So if you can keep yourself from eating this and need storage, I would say, just like most citrus, it's all about moisture. So for longer shelf life, you can actually store it in a refrigerator. Airflow plays a huge role in maintaining freshness. So even, let's say you decide to refrigerate them, you can put them in a mesh bag as opposed to a plastic bag, so they get a little bit more of the air circulation. Or if you can place them in the veggie section of your refrigerator and then maybe even turn them occasionally to make sure that there's airflow, they'll remain fresh. I mean, I've had fruit in my refrigerator. I think, I've held it when I bought a big container for 3 to 4 weeks. I know other folks that I work with have held it even longer. So if it goes, if it's on your counter, it can go into the refrigerator and you still have a great experience.
Yeah.
And what's the pack out at Sam's Club?
What size is it? I believe it's a 3-pound box.
Is that
about based
12
on the size,
pieces of fruit?
It's a smaller piece of fruit that goes into that club size. So I think they have about 6 to 7 pieces for that delivers 3 pounds.
Yeah, I bought them for my Sam's Club here in Minnesota, and they were like in a 6-pack or whatever.
Yeah.
Are they baseball size? Are they like, how big are they?
I think for that, each piece, I'd have to go look at my average sizes for them, but it's probably about maybe half a pound each. So it's still a really big piece of mandarin. But our largest Sumo citrus the largest fruit can be over a pound. So
wow.
I would say about probably a baseball size. Cynthia is probably right.
And so over a pound, is that a softball?
I would say the ones
just
I've
to
seen.
Give people.
Yeah, I even have a visual I can share with you guys that shows the range. Versus I can share that with you. It actually shows. So you can compare it, see how the range and the weight of the fruit actually varies depending on the size.
Yeah, please
Rick,
send that to me.
frankly,
We're only audio, as you know, but I could post
Oh,
that
that's
on our,
right.
but I can post it on the website, and I usually do
Sure.
an article along with each episode. So,
And
Okay, I can
Rick,
send
I'm
that to you.
surprised that you couldn't give me the comparison.
Comparison to what?
When I
Size?
said, like, is it a softball? I mean, like, you knew
It was
that
bigger.
big
Well-
old pumpkin that took a
Yeah.
forklift to move.
Well,
oh, she's talking to Rick.
since it has the top knot thing, I don't know if you know this, but softballs don't have those. They're just
Okay, because we can't just kind of take a leap forward. And I didn't say exactly. I said, is it softball size, baseball
I would say that
size?
once you peel it, it's between the size of a baseball and a softball after it's peeled. That's my recollection.
I think that's probably right. Yeah.
I didn't, it's not got 108 stitches. Like, yeah, I'm not asking crazy specs like that.
Okay, so I know most people want to eat these out of hand.
Mhm.
Just pop them open, eat them quick. But are there some interesting recipes that you can share with us?
You're right. So most consumers are eating it as, ready to go sort of snack, breakfast, lunch, post dinner. And there are a lot of passionate fans who created recipes. I'll share with you the link for our recipes if you'd like to
Okay.
include it in the article.
For example,
Our top three, I would say there's actually a Sumo citrus spinach salad.
Oh, wow.
There's also a
Yeah.
Sumo citrus margarita if you're in the mood for a
yes.
drink. It can offset. And then number three is actually there's a chia seed pudding with Sumo citrus.
Oh, wow.
Those are the top three. And I'll share a link where consumers
Okay.
you can go on our website and see these and beyond.
We can
back to that margarita.
let me
is
let me
that
ask
like
her for
salt?
that. Let me ask her first for that address. Can you give us the URL here, even though it's
Yeah,
audio? I'll
it's a
post it
little
on the website too, but
sure. It's sumocitrus.com/blog/recipe.
okay.
And I will also share that so you could include that.
Okay. Sumocitrus.com. You can get that.
Yep.
/blog, not /blog/recipes, plural.
It's actually, let me correct that. It's sumocitrus.com/blog/ there's a hashtag recipe singular.
Okay. So there's not a next slash. It's blog hashtag.
Yes,
or
it's a hashtag.
hyphen.
Just a hashtag
Okay,
and a recipe.
All right, got it. Okay.
Is there
We'll give
something
that.
like an orange cake or
I would, Cynthia, have to go back and double check to see. We know that in the dessert space, it's been used salads a lot, but I'll double check to see if there's a cake recipe.
I mean,
bet
I
it would make
know
a
that
good
we're
cake.
supposed like the spinach salad that
Let's
would
keep
be
it
the
healthy.
best thing.
Keep it healthy, Cynthia.
However, there's a lot of lemon, there's a lot of blueberry but orange, I haven't found a baking recipe that speaks to me.
Okay. We will take that challenge on for you and see what we could do. I know we have citrus cookies again on the website. And there is there's a cheesecake. There's a Sumo Citrus Valentine's Day specifically cheesecake. I don't know if that's your thing. Muffins are on that list. There's a Sumo Citrus tart recipe we have on the website as well. I'm looking through.
Well, it could probably be used similar to anything that you'd use an orange with, I would think.
But I haven't found an orange.
We have an Sumo Citrus olive oil cake. I don't know if you were.
That sounds interesting.
Maybe not, but we have a recipe for that as well.
Cynthia, you need to create one. Cynthia's a really good
Maybe
cook.
you could help create one.
She
Yeah.
needs to create it for you. Come on,
CJ Sumo.
Uh, very good. Yeah, so we'll see. What about the zest of the rind? Can you use it as a zest?
So you can use the zest of the rind similarly to other citrus as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but we actually, with the rind, and you can edit this out if this is not, relevant, because this is not
Okay.
necessarily fresh, but we always think about ways that we can deliver, a value add product. So
Right.
the fruit that doesn't make it to the fresh market,
Got it.
from the rind of Sumo citrus, we actually extracted oil and powder,
Okay.
which we partnered with a beauty company called Lolly Beauty to create a Sumo citrus facial cleanser, which is an all natural product, a skin brightening. It has asparagine, great vitamin C. So thought I would just bring that up, popped into my head as you mentioned, the rind. The focus for the brand is the fresh
Right.
season. But we just launched this item with Lolly Beauty in September of this past year. So it gave me a chance to talk about Sumo with the Australian crop. And
Got
by
it.
the way, we're also thinking about, holistically using the fruit in a different way within the beauty category.
That's brilliant. Fantastic. Also, back to candy. I saw that the Japanese candy brand Haichu,
Yes.
you've got to know that. They have a decapon flavored version of it, I think. Is that true, Sonia?
You think?
I would have to do. I'm familiar with Haichu. I probably have not had a decapon flavor Haichu if they have one.
Yeah. I read that
there's
they did at least a limited edition of it. So
if there's a
yeah.
candy company that listens to your podcast that would like to give us a call, I'm happy to
All
share
right.
my personal cell phone number.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Let's get a Sumo.
And my
flavor.
address and yeah.
We will
I'd
text
love.
with Cynthia. She will be our
I could
R&D.
be the official. You and I could be the taste testers.
Yes.
And like see if it
We're
makes the cut.
R&D. That's why I said R&D. You and I are R&D.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is great. Budding.
Have you ever had the chocolate orange?
I have had chocolate oranges. Yes.
That would be a good idea. Chocolate Sumo.
I know. Yes. I think a lot of our, bloggers and influencers they've created those recipes. It's like dip a Sumo and I'm like, it's already so sweet, but yes, you can dip it in chocolate.
Well, there's a specific thing. I think it comes from England. It's called a chocolate orange.
Oh, you're talking about the candied, like in the box that comes. Yes.
It's not
it's orange flavored, but it breaks apart like sections of an orange.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Orange-ish.
Flavored. It's orange flavor, yes.
How about Sumo wine?
Ooh. Or a Sumo gin or a Sumo vodka, right? Like there's a lot of flavored, spirits there as well. So yeah, we're trying to figure out.
We're going to get paid for
all this
consulting and marketing
we're having right now. Yes.
we'll just take a percentage.
But we have to do a marketing trip, so if they'll bring us out, we get.
Yeah. If you're ever in the San Joaquin Valley and when we're in season, if you'd like to come, we'd be happy to take you to a Sumo orchard and show you how this is all done.
Great, thank you. Well, we've probably taken enough of your time, but we have a little ritual that we do here in each episode. All of our guests, all of our guests have to go through this ritual. It's painful.
Oh.
So get ready.
Okay.
Teresa loves puns. And in every episode, she gives us a pun. We call it the homegrown. Because they're
Is the growl a part of it?
You can growl. Yes, the groan. We have to groan.
That was a groan, not a.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I misheard.
Because they're always bad. You can't laugh. The rule is you can't laugh, but but you have to groan. No, I tease her. Sometimes they're pretty funny, but usually what she does is she gives it's usually a question, and we try to guess what the pun is. So it's a little bit of a quiz. So I will introduce it, Teresa will tell us the pun and we'll see if we can guess it. Okay, here we go. Okay, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment on the Produce Buzzers podcast. Yes, it's time for Homegrown. Yes, you know, don't run away. Don't run away. Don't turn the volume down. Don't switch the program off. You have to stay and be punished with one of Teresa's homegrown. Teresa, what's the homegrown for this week?
Well, first I have to say this was a very appealing episode of our podcast.
Nicely done.
Agreed.
But what do you call a sumo wrestler with 2 broken legs?
Okay. What do you call a sumo wrestler with 2 broken legs? Okay, Rick, come on. You're usually good at guessing these. What do you think?
A loser?
Probably.
Is that like one of those words you're not supposed to use? A bowling ball?
A bowling ball. That's terrible. Oh, man. 2 broken legs. I don't know. I can't. My brain isn't working today. Sonia, you have any guesses?
I don't think I do either. I'm very
No,
curious
right?
now, though.
Okay.
Okay.
Teresa.
So what do you call a sumo wrestler with 2 broken legs? Anything you want, because he can't get up and run after you.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was supposed to groan.
Yeah, that was bad.
That wasn't quite a pun, but it was just as painful. So, what a good. All right.
Especially for the
wrestled that one
sumo
all
wrestler.
night,
You wrestled
Oh.
with it.
That was good. That was good. Okay, Sonia, we're so sorry to torture you, but thank you so much for being on the show. It's been delightful, very informative and entertaining, and we appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thank you again for having me, and nice to meet the full team.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Okay. All right.
Take care.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you
Bye-bye.
again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sonia. Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.